why Columbia no longer has a department-wide community policing model in place. And that is why Mayor Brian Treece has made much-needed changes to City Hall. Look, I saw a glimmer of hope in the mayoral race in 2016. I didn't know Mr. Treece personally. You can bet I was watching what he was doing. And even after everything that has happened, because I still love the city of Columbia, and I love the Columbia Police Department, and the people who work there. My husband is a retired Columbia police officer. I have family here. And we continue to make our home in Boone County. Columbia's police department is finally headed in the right direction because we need steady leadership to continue that transformation. The next mayor will select the new city manager, who will then select the next full-time police chief. We can't afford to put Columbia's public safety at risk any longer. Don't stop the progress he has made over the last few years. That's why I'm supporting Mayor Brian Treece. We need his leadership now more than ever. My interest in this race is to restore the City of Columbia's police department to the model and premier department it was when I started, and to support the men and women who still work there. And when we do that, recruitment will be easier, retention will improve, and all that helps reduce crime and improve the quality of life. I want to thank Mayor Treece for letting me speak today.
I'm Alan Mitchell. I'm the president of the Columbia Police Officers Association. We represent over 150 of the Columbia Police Department officers at this time. For the first time in a long time, our members are seeing a positive change in the department. Our morale is up, it is going up. It has made a turn from an almost decade-long decline. That change started 3 years ago when Brian Treece became mayor. We are proud as an association to endorse Mayor Brian Treece for re-election. Our support for Mayor Treece is based on 3 main issues: his transparency in our local government, his investment in public safety, and his overall leadership of the city. On transparency, Mayor Treece has made transparency a hallmark of his administration, especially when it comes to financial transparency. He's been trying to get rid of the smoke and mirrors that surround our former city managers' budgets. Mayor Treece has also called upon the state for a performance audit, which we wholeheartedly support. Our hope is that this audit will free up money for public safety and allow for overall better spending of the city's finances. On investing in public safety, even though city finances were tight, Mayor Treece was able to gain us 9 additional officer positions, all without raising taxes. Those 9 positions help to relieve some of the strain on our overworked officers and to protect Columbia's neighborhoods. Mayor Treece also brought along the first significant raises our officers had seen in over 7 years. This was in order to help with the retention of our officers with 5 or more years experience at a time when retention was becoming a critical point. Mayor Treece also helped bring us our new ergonomic vests. These vests help relieve strain on officers' backs. They help relieve back injuries that have been sustained over years of work with belts on. And he was able to bring them in and get it pushed forward for us to get them. We also owe Mr. Treece for his actions in naming the Molly Thomas Bowden North Precinct Police Station, and we thank you, Mr. Treece, for that. On leadership, our officers crave leadership. The former city manager and former police chief have showed us what how bad leadership can damage a city and a police department. Mayor Treece has shown us that good leadership can right a ship and repair a city. Mayor Treece challenged the City Council to reject the outdated rhetoric of the former city manager and former police chief and replace them with an interim city manager and an interim police chief that even now are working to transform our police department into something that both the officers and the community can be proud of. The Columbia Police Department is finally headed in the right direction. We need to continue that transformation. The next mayor will select the new city manager, who will in turn hire the next police chief. We can't afford to put Columbia's public safety at risk. We need effective leadership, and we need to re-elect Brian Treece to mayor.
President Mitchell and Commander Schwartz and Mr. and Mrs. Thomas, I am humbled by your words, but I am proud of the accomplishments we have made in the last 3 years. You know, as President Mitchell said, we've added 9 new police officers without raising taxes. We improved funding for the retention of officers with over 5 years of service, because that's the sweet spot that we want to try to keep our veteran police officers working for us. I supported funding for a pilot program for neighborhood housing and take-home cars to better recruit police officers to some of our target neighborhoods. And I was proud to name our new North Police Precinct after Molly Thomas Bowden, because it's important to recognize the sacrifice that these police officers and their families make every day that they go to work. But I also think it helps us recruit a better police department, because it's a reminder, a tangible reminder, that our police officers come in all shapes and sizes and genders. I initiated a new collaborative policing strategy with the University of Missouri that would give the University of Missouri primary jurisdiction over Greektown. That liberates about 300 calls for our local police officers that we can dedicate a new officer into our downtown. And speaking of downtown, when there was a spike in gun violence at the beginning of the college semester, my wife and I were out there sweeping the glass from shopkeepers who had their windows blown out from across Broadway. But then we brought them all into the mayor's office and had a meeting with downtown business owners and our law enforcement command staff on what can we do together to improve the safety of downtown. That resulted in better lighting, more enforcement, and some of the bottlenecks that were creating these opportunities for mischief. You know, 3 years ago, I promised to lead a community dialogue to make Columbia the dynamic and inclusive community we all know it can be. Chris Kelly has not attended any of those meetings. We've met nearly every month at Second Missionary Baptist Church for the last 2 years. We had 7 town halls about community policing. Chris Kelly wasn't there. Time and time again, the city council asked the former city manager to manage the former police chief for better results. Chris Kelly was the one who co-sponsored and voted for the bill that made it harder to fire police chiefs in Missouri. You know, in the last 3 months, we've had a police chief with, let's face it, some social media hygiene problems. We had a lieutenant that made offensive comments on Facebook. You know, leadership starts at the top. And Chris Kelly can say that his deleted tweets are just a joke, but women and minorities are always the butt of his jokes. And that is unacceptable in today's world. That's not the type of leadership we need. You know, finally, I want to point out that Chris Kelly recently said the new city manager needs courage. The new city manager needs courage to push back on a city council that is out of line. This is a major divide between me and my opponent. And I want to be clear about one thing. The city council passed a transparency policy, and a judge ruled the former city manager knowingly violated the Sunshine Law. The city council passed a community policing resolution, and the former city manager and the former police chief violated that council directive and then lied to the public and the city council. The future of Columbia is not a return to yesterday. And Chris Kelly takes us backwards. As mayor, I don't know how to do the job that you guys do every single day. But I do know how to do my job, to make sure that you have the effective leadership and the backup and the tools and the resources that you need to be safe and effective.
I'd like to ask Zim, and I'd also like to ask the Thomases. Zim, why did you drive up here from Springfield? Am I correct?
Yes.
Why did you drive up from Springfield today to show your support of Mayor Treece?
I think a lot of people know the history and what happened a few years back, and the termination that happened at the Columbia Police Department, and it was 2 people. And Mayor Treece, and I didn't even know him when he was running in 2016, but he recognized and saw something was wrong. There were issues. And he started listening to the officers that were there. He started listening to the people who were talking. And I watched very closely what was happening. And there's several retirees here today, and we love our department, and we couldn't stand to see what was happening. And he was the one who stood up and said, I'm going to change things. I'm going to make a transformation. I'm going to make it right. And oftentimes he was standing by himself. But he did it. So I think it's very important, the leadership that he has shown, the changes he has made, just not even just recently, but overall in the last 3 years, I think is very important for me to come up and show my support for him.
Do you plan on applying for the police chief position?
I told Mayor Treece that questions were going to be dangerous. I haven't asked that a lot in the last 3 months. I have heard from folks inside the department, retirees, city retirees, other city employees, the community. I've got people calling my husband and telling them I need to come back and fix things. I can say at this point, it'll be very interesting to talk about.
What was that? I'm sorry?
It'll be very interesting to talk about.
I'll leave it at that.